So you want to become that guy, the one people tag, the one people reference, the one that gets invited on podcasts, and the one that people trust without hesitation. Most people think that it would take 10 years to become that guy. And what if I told you that there was a way for you to position yourself as the go-to expert in your niche in 90 days? And that is what I'm going to be sharing with you in today's video. The 4-step process that you can implement into your brand today to become the go-to leader in your industry. The very first time that I've experienced the impact of what I'm about to share with you was actually in November of 2024. So at that time, I've been producing about 2.5 years of crypto marketing related content. I've been around, I wasn't new in the block. And a lot of my strategies back then was based on just grinding my way through being a lone wolf, creating the content. And it was working. But around November of 2024, almost a year ago from now, I noticed that something changed in my positioning as a creator in the marketplace. There was something that happened during that period of time where all of a sudden my perception as an expert in the Web3 marketing industry completely changed. I started noticing people tagging me a lot more on articles. I started noticing people inviting me on podcasts for the first time ever. People were referencing me in their posts. Word of mouth started to grow. And what actually happened 2 months after, in January of 2025, it ended up leading to Unfungible hitting its record month of $300,000 in revenue that month, which back then was a record month for us. And it was during the process of me doing the things that were building my personal brand where I started noticing like, ooh, interesting. This is what happened during that time that led me to have that extra new step. So over the last 3 years, I've pretty much been compiling everything I've learned that have allowed me to become someone that is referenced by projects, someone that people come to seek out my thought leadership, whether it's through my business at Unfungible or through personal consulting. And it all boils down to 4 steps. With the first step being to find your contrarian narrative. Assume you are part of a niche or part of an industry, which if you're watching this video, I assume you will because you're either an established crypto founder or you are an aspiring crypto founder or marketer. Now, if you are trying to put your thoughts out there and you agree with everyone, you agree with everything that is happening, you're pretty much speaking to no one. Because if you agree with everyone, you are as good as the other person that is making content. If you agree with everything, it also means that you speak to no one. If you notice, every big thought leader, whether in crypto or outside of crypto, what they did is that they saw something in the marketplace that they did not agree with, and then they created their contrarian narrative. They put their foot on the ground and they said, I do not agree with how this is happening in the industry, and here's why I believe not. Just think of your favorite thought leader. Most likely, they believed in something long before it became market consensus. A contrarian narrative is nothing but a narrative that is overlooked or not agreed by the mass that you believe to be true. If we were to look at some examples, Murad, who is seen today as the godfather of meme coins. He had his breakthrough moment when he went up on stage during Token 2049 and he spoke into existence his thoughts of why meme coin were the greatest innovation that came out of crypto. And when everyone says meme coins have no utility, he came out and says that meme coin have infinite utility. And it is the solution to the loneliness crisis that is sweeping society. Now, whether you believe in this narrative or not, it was contrarian. It was new. It was something that a lot of people thought different, thought shocking, and some people thought that it made a lot of sense. And Murad was a big reason why we had a huge swing towards the meme coin meta. He pretty much gave logic to a meta that was not well understood by the masses. And by doing this, all of a sudden became the go-to expert in that category. Another example that I have for you is Vitalik Buterin. When he started Ethereum, the consensus back in the days within crypto builders was to build scalability on top of Bitcoin. How do we make Bitcoin more scalable? Most builders were tinkering with Bitcoin. What Vitalik did is he looked at that and he was like, no, I think we need to build a blockchain that is programmable. And that is where he started Ethereum. And it created a new revolution in the blockchain space. Michael Saylor, when Wall Street was laughing about Bitcoin, and when the government of the United States was doing everything they could to crack down and destroy the industry, Michael Saylor was out there championing Bitcoin, buying it in the billions. And look at where he is today. For me, for example, what happened around November of 2024, a lot of my narrative over the last 2 years has been founder-led marketing will always outperform paid marketing, especially on the long term. I've been around long enough to have seen enough projects come and go. And with all the projects that went as quickly as they came were the ones that didn't have a strong foundation. They didn't have a strong community. They didn't have strong stickiness in the marketplace. No one remembers them even. And a big reason why that was is because there was no central figure that represented the movement, that represented the project, that being the founder. And then I noticed that all the projects that had sticking power, even though they were not the most successful projects, but they had sticking power, were the ones who had a strong founder-led presence. But then by the middle of 2024, Unfungible had very quickly grown during the year of 2024. We had grown the team, we had grown the portfolio of clients that we work with. So late 2024, I started championing even more the founder funnel. And then what happened, the second time around that I started bringing it to the market, started clicking. And people started to understand how the old way of doing marketing, which was based on quick hype campaigns, was slowly disappearing. It wasn't sustainable. So the market seemed to be waking up. And this was me cracking the first part, which was the Contrarian Narrative. And mind you, back then, no one was talking about founder-led marketing. What you next need is a unique mechanism. So now that you have voiced in the marketplace what you do not believe in, now is the time to introduce what you do believe in, packaged in your own unique mechanism. So unique mechanism is actually a term that I learned from my digital marketing experience. I've been building internet communities and doing e-commerce since 2017. And through the years, I've had the opportunity to learn from a lot of big Web2 entrepreneurs. I've been part of a lot of courses, a lot of small masterminds. And I remember there was one concept that I started seeing being spoken about a lot in the online business learning space, which was the concept of unique mechanism. And a unique mechanism is nothing but a concept that is well understood or even misunderstood in the marketplace. What you do is that you find a way to repackage it in a way that makes more sense for people and for it to be easier to understand and consume. And the reason why unique mechanisms are important is because, number one, they position you differently in the marketplace, because although you're taking something that people already kind of understood or misunderstand, by wrapping it in a new branding, it becomes unique pretty much. But then it also makes it easier for people to repeat your unique mechanism. So it facilitates people's understanding of your mechanism and it facilitates word of mouth. And when you combine these two things, all of a sudden you have a business or you have a marketing message that resonates a lot better than if you didn't have the unique mechanism. Now, let me tell you some examples of what the unique mechanism is. If you've ever been in the online wellness performance space, you've probably seen Dave Asprey, who became very well known around 2017, 18, 19 for his bulletproof coffee concept, which is nothing but adding butter to coffee. And he had this whole science behind it where it's like by introducing fat into coffee, you reduce the absorption of coffee into your body. And I remember myself back then, like in 2018, 19, I was only drinking coffee with butter inside of it. So I would just put every morning, I would put a little cube of butter inside my coffee. And here's the important part. Instead of just calling it butter coffee, he called it bulletproof coffee. So he gave it his own spin, his own name, and even then actually ended up creating his own brand about it. So the category became his brand name. Another example, I think you're gonna like this one. Actually, Alex Hormozi with his new book release. So I have it right here. I have the $100 million money models. You know what the interesting thing about his money models, the title, is that money models is the unique mechanism of Alex Hormozi. When you are to think about his 3 books, so the first book was Offer, the second book was Leads, and the third book is called Money Models. When you think about it, is the sequence of the books is product, how do you build a product that people want to buy? Number 2, how do you get traffic? And number 3, how do you convert that traffic into your product? So Money Models is just about how do you convert people into your offer. But then if he had called the book $100 million Conversions, it would not have sounded as sexy. If you do go through the book, it's literally how do you convert people into your product. So he took the concept of conversion, which is well understood and boring, and he packaged it into something new, unique, which is money model. So for Hormozi, the money model's concept is his unique mechanism. Another example that I have from my digital marketing days is Russell Brunson, who coined the term funnel. Back in the days, sales funnels on your website used to be called landing pages. He took that and he named it funnels, and then he created ClickFunnels, his business that became a multi-billion-dollar company. The funnels is his unique mechanism. Then we have things like the carnivore diet. That is a unique mechanism as well. And if we are to look at some examples in crypto, we already looked at the case study of Rekt on this channel, who coined the term brand coin. And the moment they coined that term, you could see the chart going parabolic. And I remember back then, the whole timeline started talking about brand coin because it all of a sudden made it easier people understood it, and it made it easier to repeat to other people. My favorite content creators, my favorite podcasters, everyone was talking about brand coins and how brand coins were gonna revolutionize crypto. That is an example of a unique mechanism. And I've spoken quite a lot about how do you create your own unique mechanism using the Blue Ocean Strategy Framework as well as the Law of Leadership. What I'm gonna do is at the end of this video, I'm gonna reference for you the case study of Rekt Coin. I think it's a great case study and it's a stellar example of taking a brand that is very commoditized and in a competitive industry and then positioning it as the greatest new thing to come out of crypto, which is what they did. And they have a great brand, by the way. So I'll let you watch it. So this was step number 2. So step number 1, we've developed our contrarian narrative. Step number 2 is we created our new packaging for our new solution. Step number 3 becomes hitchhiking and other people's brand credibility. So a lot of how I was building my brand in the early days was I was being a lone wolf. I was just doing content on my own. I wasn't interacting much on the timeline. I wasn't networking so much. And I still don't consider myself a great networker, by the way. Like I still have remnants of my lone wolf identity. And sometimes I just rather why go to conferences? I can instead film 3 videos during that week. Like I still think this. And my team has to convince me to go to conferences, to meet our partners, which I love doing, but I just hate traveling. Anywho, that aside, a big thing that happened in Q4 of last year when I noticed my brand grow is I associated my brand with some very well-respected and trusted figures in the industry. For example, back in around November of 2024, I did a podcast interview with both Yatsu, so the chairman of Animoca Brands, and with Zagabond, the founder of Azuki. And the moment I did these 2 interviews, I remember I published them and they both did very well, especially on X. That became a big moment where the perceived value of Leon's brand got elevated because all of a sudden people saw me in the same room as these 2 founders that are respected, they are trusted, they have their own projects, they are very successful. And then you put Leon in the same room as them. That right here became a big turning point in my brand. And then I stuck with the podcast and I continued interviewing other guests until I got to the point where people wanted to start interviewing me. And when you think about it, that is a lot of the same strategy that Joe Rogan used. The early days of Joe Rogan, people would tune in for the different guests that he would interview. I remember I would watch Joe Rogan when he had Elon Musk on or when he would have Neil deGrasse Tyson on. But then over time, what happened? It was Joe Rogan that started to become the authority figure in the room. So now for most of his podcasts, Joe Rogan is a bigger authority figure than the guests that he has on. And that was a process of Joe Rogan rubbing on the authority and credibility of the speakers that he was having on his show. If you think of Alex Friedman as well with the Alex Friedman podcast, he started off just as a scientist. He wasn't well known. And then he started his podcast and then he started interviewing bigger and bigger people. And then he interviewed Elon Musk and then he interviewed presidents of countries. And then now he has one of the biggest platforms in the world and is now himself being invited to other podcasts. The same phenomenon happens when people see you hanging around certain circles. They all of a sudden associate you with these people. And that applies both to the good and to the bad. So if you're in rooms with people bigger than you, people are going to associate you to this. But if you're in a room with people smaller than you or people that have questionable reputation, all of a sudden people are going to see you that way as well. And it is true. I mean, that is the reality. I know some people are listening to this and they don't like it, is just the reality of things. People don't know how to perceive you. Instead, they will perceive you in relation to who they already perceive in their eyes. And that is why I personally say every single creator and even founder should have their own podcast. Because truth be told, your ability to attract good speakers is amazing when you have a podcast and when you have a platform. For example, even if you have a very small audience, you don't need to have big audiences. You're gonna have the ability to land big speakers that you would think are outside of your league. But people generally appreciate being invited on podcasts. So now that we've spoken about the third part, which is hitchhike on other people's credibility, this then brings us to the last step, which is to build a philosophy around your solution. Most beginners make the mistake of pivoting outside of their unique mechanism way too early. Because in their head, they're thinking, oh, I'm gonna go for a bigger audience now. But the thing is, the reality of things is, your unique mechanism, you need to stick to it and continue repeating it long enough until it becomes a philosophy, until it becomes a way of living and a way of doing that you want your followers to also agree with and join you on your mission. And the difference between a beginner and an expert is that an expert knows how to stick long enough with one thing until it becomes a way of living. I mean, just think of your favorite brands, think of your favorite creators. Think of Andrew Huberman, who started as just talking about neuroscience, and he blew up during 2021, just talking about neuroscience. But then after he became an authority figure in that niche, did he start branching out. And one of the things he's good at is he knows how to still speak on matters that he is an expert at, such as health, longevity, and science. He knows how to speak about it in a way that makes it become a lifestyle for people. For example, I love using the sauna. And a lot of the people that I meet in the sauna, I ask them, like, when did you start doing sauna? And I kid you not, half the people reference Andrew Huberman because they heard Andrew Huberman talk about the benefits of sauna and the longevity and the reduction in all-cause mortality that it creates, and they started doing the sauna, including myself, by the way. So he became the person that then has the ability to speak with such authority that creates a lifestyle change for people. Another example is Lululemon. It was a clothing brand. They niched down to only speak to the yoga community. Although I'm sure there was a point where it became tempting to grow from the yoga persona, they stuck with it. And today Lululemon is no longer just a yoga brand, although this is their branding. They have become a lifestyle brand. So now they have transcended to become a health and wellness brand. And if you wear a Lululemon, which by the way, a lot of the clothes that I wear, this is not a Lululemon, but I have half my wardrobe is Lululemon. It positioned itself as a lifestyle brand. So did Nike. When you think of CrossFit as well, it is a lifestyle. So is yoga, so is all these things. Tim Ferriss with his 4-hour work week. He created an online digital revolution of people working from abroad and constructing their business in a way where they don't need to be part of the day-to-day of the business. So the 4-hour work week became a philosophy in and of itself. And just for my case, for example, I've realized that no matter how many times I repeat the founder funnel, there are still people out there that misunderstand it or don't even know about it. I've been yapping about the founder funnel for the last 2.5 years now, and I still have people on my X asking me, Leon, what is the founder funnel? But the fact of me repeating it and making all these videos and creating all these tutorials of how it fits within the brand marketing campaign, all of a sudden it created a way for people to operate their business. I have people now that are not touching anything in marketing but the founder funnel. They're not doing anything. No, they're not even touching influencer marketing, and they've understood that the founder funnel is the only way to build longevity in this space. So they have rewired their behavior. And that is a key word. When you have the ability to rewire people's behavior based on your unique mechanism, you know you've built a philosophy for your brand. You have a philosophy brand. And that is the ultimate goal that you want to get to. How do you become a philosophy in the lives of your customers? So these are the 4 things, ladies and gentlemen. And I say this generally, like, this is not clickbait. If you implement the 4 things together in an industry that is untapped with a unique mechanism that is good enough, I can guarantee you, you're gonna have the ability to rise to become the go-to figure in your specific industry in 90 days. Like, this is not clickbait. I've seen people get there. I've seen my brand get there during a 3-month period, this is again November to January, just based on my accidental discovery of the 4 things that I just shared with you right now, which are contrarian narrative, building this, creating your unique mechanism, then hitchhiking on other people's brand authority and credibility, and number 4, building a philosophy around your brand. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Leon Aboud. If you want to watch the wrecked case study and how do you build a unique mechanism for a crypto project, the video is going to be linked right here. And if we're not following each other, make sure we do on X at @LeonAboud_ and on Instagram at @LeonAboud. I've been publishing more crypto related content over there. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.